ASHB IBC webinar meeting. My name is Marta Klopotowska, and I'll be emceeing the slides today. I'd like to mention that today's webinar meeting is being recorded, and we will be circulating it to those who registered and also for those who could not attend. I'll quickly go over the agenda for today's meeting and then shortly after pass it on to Greg Walker, who will be filling in for our chair, our IBC chair, Bob Allen. So starting off with the agenda today, we will start off with the call to order, welcome introductions, and a little bit about who we are as the IBC part of ASHB. Go over a couple administrative items, mostly just the minutes and the approval of the minutes themselves. We'll do a quick update on the ASHB research. And then we'll get into the meat of today's meeting with our keynote by Leon Wurfel from Bueno Systems. And the topic on today's keynote will be analytics as a core offering. As well, we'll go over a little bit of the ASHB podcast, and then Ken Wax will go over the ASHB journal and the white papers, a little bit of an update on those. We'll go over some new business and then some announcements, and then we will adjourn today, probably just prior to about 1:30 or so. So with that, I will pass it off to Greg Walker.
Thanks, Marta. So yeah, I'll be filling in for Bob Allen. We just found out couldn't make it to today's meeting to chair it. So for those that are unaware about the IBC, we're over 20 years old. This is a subgroup of ASHB, formerly CABA, and this group is focused just around commercial buildings, and we meet on a quarterly basis via webinar only, and we talk about some trends in the industry, what's going on, updates on different research projects and other initiatives in the space. And we've added a few years ago, we've added this sort of a keynote guest speaker presentation option to the meeting as well. And there's an opportunity to find out about industry events that just happened and ones that are upcoming, and address some new business that you may have to educate the industry in this particular group. So this is about there's over 200 that are on the council itself. So the chair is Bob Allen from NAVCO, and he's been a vice chair in the past and has been chair for many years. And then we have our three vice chairs is Chris, Bob Lane, and then Harsha. And so if you go to the next slide. So there's this one administrative agenda item here, and this is the approval of the past board meeting, the past minutes for the IBC. After every meeting, we attach the recording and attach the minutes and put it on our web page for this project, which is ashb.com/IBC. And so I'd just like to make a call for a motion to approve the minutes of the August 21st, 2023 IBC meeting.
This is Chris Larry. I'll motion to that.
And do we have a seconder?
Yes, Michael Grant, Metricus.
Okay. Any opposed or any additions that anything that was missed in those meetings? Hearing none, we just the meetings are approved and the motion is passed, and we'll put the approved minutes on the web page. And there'll be minutes after this meeting, and we'll along with the recording in a draft format that you can review after the call. And we'll try to we usually put on some contact information for some of the guest speakers if you're interested, and other sort of details that are further to the agenda items. If you go to the next slide. So I guess with this one, Marta, if you want to give an update about some of the IBC landmark research project that you're taking the lead on.
Yes, great. Thank you. Thanks, Greg. So Robert Lane couldn't make it today. I think he will be joining us a little bit later on, but I'll quickly just go over some of the information here, or the updates on this project. So the ASHB 2023 landmark research project for this year is titled Intelligent Buildings, Technology and Market Trends. And we've garnered support from about 15 funders so far, and we would like to express our sincerest gratitude for their support and their guidance on this specific project. And essentially, earlier this year, an RFP went out to the ASHB member research firms, leading to the selection of Harbor Research by the initial funders who are basically running this project. The project is a little bit different from previous years. Rather than producing a single comprehensive report that would span at about 200 pages or so and centering on a single topic, we're adopting a different approach. The project will basically, or has been, deconstructed into a series of 3 smaller focused research projects. And the first 2 topics have been confirmed, whereas the third is currently being discussed or finalized. The first project, which has come to a close, is unlocking the potential of AI in intelligent buildings, and the second being trends and impact analysis of building sustainability strategies and investments. These topics are and will continue to be presented in the form of insightful presentations accompanied by raw data, and each project will involve approximately 100 hours of analyst dedication. The research will utilize, and as well has utilized, both industry expert interviews and consumer surveys. The survey targets approximately 250 commercial building owners, operators in Canada and in the US, and covers basically topics and opportunities that gain annual perspectives on operators' needs and outlook. It's essential to note that these projects collectively are valued at approximately $80,000 US, and will have an exclusive release to project funders. Now, it's still not too late to join the project, at least at the bronze level, but there is still some room at the silver level, the bronze level being $5,000, which will grant access to the research findings, and the silver, which is priced at $10,000 US, enabling participation in the steering committee and shaping the project direction. And for those who are interested in joining this project, please let us know. You could reach out directly to Greg Walker at ashb.com, or you can go to our website where all of our contact information is listed as well. You can also go on our website to learn a little bit more about this project, or contact us, and we can certainly set up a call to discuss. And with that, I will pass it on to Greg to go over the annual BAX market sizing North America project.
Thanks, Marta. I'll be brief. This is an ongoing project, an annual project that we're doing with the IBC. It's over 100 grand of research itself, and it's an invitation only project where the funders chip in data and market data, and then we compile that, aggregate that, and then provide information on market share and the market sizing in North America, particularly around building automation control systems and software and things like that. So there isn't really an opportunity at this point for new funders to join, but it's more of an FYI that this is a project that we're undertaking with these organizations. So if you're part of one of these organizations and aren't aware of the research and are interested in building automation controls and market size, feel free to reach out, and we can get you in touch with the right people and share some of the data. We do quarterly reports for the last few years, and this is it's been going on for a 5-year project, and it's going to be continuing for another 3 for all the funders that's on board. So everyone committed to signing up for another 3 more years. So I'll leave it at that. But if there is anyone on these organizations that's interested, feel free to drop us a line, and we can get you in touch with the right people. Thanks. So I guess with this, I'll pass it off to Harsha to give an introduction to Leon and the good work that he's doing at Bueno.
Thanks, Greg. Am I audible?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Thanks. I'll
It's my pleasure to introduce today's keynote presenter as well as the description of what the presentation is going to entail today. As an industry-leading analytics provider, Bueno helps a wide range of service businesses combine people and software into operationalized analytics solutions, enhancing the business offering with analytics as core solutions. Bueno has worked alongside clients such as system integrators, remote service providers, and vertically integrated property management organizations to leverage analytics and drive operational efficiency and decarbonization across portfolios of hundreds and 2,000 of buildings. In this presentation, some key lessons learned from Bueno's unique breadth of experience will be shared, including data integrity, empowering centralized remote service team, leveraging domain expertise and technology, scale-based use cases, solutions that create widespread impact in key business priorities. The general background of the keynote presenter, Leon Wurfel, is founder of Bueno, winner of ARBS Young Achiever Award, Energy Efficiency Council Young Professional of the Year, Advisory Board member for Wurfel, and International Smart Building Speaker. Leon believes that PropTech can disturb industries with a pro-social outcome and has power to create more sustainable workforce environment and energy between people. Leon's professional goal is to accelerate the transition net zero building operations. He has a true passion for professional leading and making a positive impact, which people doing very simply at the beginning. He aims to disturb the industry to the environment from the innovation. With this background, I hand it over to Leon for the presentation. Yeah, over to you.
All right, was that my cue to take over?
Yes, Leon.
Yeah.
All right, and how's the audio on my end?
Very good.
Very good.
Awesome. All right, bear with me while I share my screen, and please give me feedback if the AV, isn't kind of working for anyone. How's that look?
That's great. I'm not sure if you want to do full screen, Leon, if you're able to.
I will try, but I have a huge monitor in front of me. And
No worries.
How is that? Is that okay?
That's
Does that
perfect.
work for everyone?
That's perfect. Very good.
Okay, cool. All right. I just wanted to make sure that everyone could, see what I was presenting. But yeah, anyway, thanks for having me, ASHB. I'm excited to talk to you all. I'll just get straight into it because I've got half an hour of presentation and 15 minutes of Q&A. So yeah, feel free to not just lob in softball questions. Happy to answer any questions that you have at the end of this. But yeah, let's get into it. I've already kind of been introduced, but I've been around the energy efficiency industry for about 17 years and have started Bueno 10 years ago. So I've been around in this space. Background about me is that I have recently relocated to New York City. So I am now officially myself personally within the remit of ASHB now that I'm in North America, out of Australia. So yeah, I'm really glad to be here. The agenda for today. So I have these kind of key points that I want to hit, but really, if I go back to what the title is, analytics as a core offering, I'm just talking about how do we get analytics to, and what is it going to take for analytics to cross the chasm, and what is it going to take for people to, quote Nike, just do it. Because Bueno's been around for 10 years, and it still amazes me that this isn't something that the whole industry is doing. But now with the current pressures around people trying to centralize services delivery, with all of the other kind of market forces at play, we're seeing a trend to remote centralized service delivery teams, which now are starting to leverage analytics. So that's the direction that the industry is going for the more modern kind of services businesses. So here's what we're going to talk about: the headwinds, the tailwinds, goals, a temperature check on the adoption of analytics, what it looks like embedded into service organizations, and then challenges to making it all work. And I'm just going to time check myself. Okay, so really the meat of this is in those last 2 dot points. The rest of it is just kind of context setting. So I'm going to try to rush through as much as possible through these first slides so that we can get to the juicy stuff for all of you. So what are the headwinds currently? So new construction is slowing down. Now having been in New York City for a little while now, I know that that's gone from being the top construction market in the US to not even being in the top 5. You know, the stats that are out there are that construction spending is down by about 11%, and that's kind of not a good data point for services businesses that are very focused on new construction projects. We've got downwards OPEX pressure. Anecdotally, you know, we're hearing lots of people having pressure from their clients on their service contracts to just make it 10% less or 5% less or 15% less. And maintaining that revenue retention, again, for the services business is very high priority, as you know, the economic times might not be looking so good for people. And talent pool pressure. So we actually do have a data point on this. There's been some good studies put out there, I think by JCI, but there's a very wide range out there, which says that anywhere from like kind of 80,000 to 130,000 people short in the HVAC industry to do the jobs. And some of these jobs are the types of things that we're talking about having the potential to automate through leveraging analytics as a business process. And that's really the crux of the presentation today, is not looking at analytics as a tool to sell to buildings, but looking at analytics as a business process automation opportunity. You know, looking at it at the services businesses as being the customers of the tools that then use it as a piece of enterprise software to deliver better services. Tailwinds. People still spending money on ESG. People are talking about AI and definitely still spending money on AI. That seems to have really kind of captured the imagination of the world at large. Yeah, OPEX reductions. Like people, this is what the end clients are kind of looking for as outcomes. But if we think about the services businesses now, you know, that stakeholder in the industry, bearing in mind all those tailwinds and those market challenges, what are SIs, mechanical services businesses, MSIs, what are those kinds of different vendors or stakeholders looking for? Well, in a world where people are spending less dollars on construction, you know, it's helpful to have a differentiated construction bid. You know, something that can be more competitive as you're competing for a smaller pie. Protecting existing service revenues, so avoiding those conversations where the client just comes in and says, hey, I got to reduce my OPEX budget by 10%, so I want your contract down by 10%. Growing additional, so if you can target net revenue retention in a positive way, that solves a lot of your problems. Retaining good people in a competitive labor force, in a competitive labor market, it's highly important. And getting more out of your existing labor force, how are you gonna grow if you can't find the people to do the work? So diving into them in a bit more detail, it's kind of important to think about what does FDD and what does analytics offer services businesses. And we've kind of put together these, you all on the call are beta testing this diagram for me. So please put your feedback in the comments, but what does a typical services contract look like? The industry takes a preventative approach. That's kind of the business as usual kind of best practice for the industry. Preventative. What does preventative mean? It means checking things to see if they're broken. And so in a traditional maintenance contract, I hope you can see my cursor, we have a technician that will check a lot of things, maybe do a bit of a repair, check a lot of things, maybe replace a sensor or replace an actuator or something like that. Do a bunch of inspections, and then maybe you send a quote for something that was outside of scope, and then, you know, there's a report, a monthly preventive maintenance report. And what you see there is that a huge amount of, a preventative maintenance, a preventative service contract is inspections, which is someone with domain expertise putting their eyeballs on a potential problem. And particularly in the automation space, there's lots of eyeballs on, you know, data points showing up on BMSs, and that kind of domain expertise can be scaled through analytics instead. So if you have the post analytics service contract, it has as much as possible all of these preventative maintenance inspections or checks being done by the software, and saving the human, the finite, expensive, skilled human labor for the things that only humans can do, like the actual actions that need to be taken. And if only it was that easy, then people would already be doing it everywhere. So we're going to get into why some of these things are challenges, but in terms of how that approach can help for construction, you can have differentiated construction bids if you're offering your clients enhanced warranty management. And that's better for the services vendors if they're managing their punch sheets better, reducing their commissioning labor. They can be more competitive and offer a higher technology, higher value, potentially lower or same cost solution. In terms of services, I mean, it's really about maintaining your revenues, potentially upselling and generating pull-through. And people, this is really interesting. So when we are engaging with all of our clients, like we really look at this as a enterprise software for services vendors. There's always a discovery process that goes on where we talk to people about what's important. How do you get more mind space in terms of analytics? How do you get people to take this? How do you get people to care? And what is really interesting is that in general, when we're talking to sales teams of our clients and when we're talking to service teams of our clients, in general, it's more than 80% of people say that analytics is important because they want their organizations to stay at the forefront of technology. So it is something that people care about, which is great. But also businesses should care about it too, because if you structure these contracts right, you can be, as a business, you can be doing 15 to 20% more services revenue out of your same team size, which is very helpful in a labor constrained labor market. Now, temperature test. So not everyone is doing this. It really, excuse me, it really surprises me that starting Bueno 10 years ago, the whole industry isn't doing this because it makes a lot of sense. And we're sitting at this kind of point, right, where to go mainstream, analytics has to cross the chasm. So the question is, why isn't it more widely adopted? Why hasn't it gone from the early adopters through to the early and late majority? And I guess we're hoping right now is that this whole movement, that the whole labor market as a whole is moving towards more remote work, and analytics is a way for service contracts to then move the balance of labor between on-site to remote centralized service delivery. So, we're hoping that as a major kind of thematic for the whole planet, then that's going to be what drives us past the chasm. But it is actually something that we're seeing is because of all the pressures on our clients. There is a real drive to our clients, the service providers, and our clients, the end clients who might be vertically integrated services organizations. There is pressure to deliver more of their services in a remote, centralized, and technology-enabled way. So I think this is the time. Right. So I have gotten through all of the context setting now. So maybe I can afford to slow down a bit and take a little bit of extra time with these next few slides. But really, the next challenge, the next part of the presentation focuses on what have been the challenges to date in embedding analytics into a services business model. And there's a number of them. Why hasn't everyone done this already? Why hasn't it crossed the chasm? Well, it's been hard for people to actually operationalize this technology. There's been challenges, and it's been hard for people to do it in a way that it's been a win-win-win. A win for the services organizations who are able to do it and still maintain their margins, a win for the clients who are able to get better value, and also a win for the planet because this ultimately does drive carbon emission reductions in the commercial property market, which is incredibly important. And so these are the top 4 things that we've seen that have been barriers, and people that have progressed to operationalizing these solutions and delivering it as an embedded part of their whole services product, they found ways to address this. So this is what we're here today, or what I'm here today to share with all of you, is how can the rest of the industry learn from the challenges that we've faced so far. These are data acquisition, So getting the data in the first place. The second is data integrity and decay. So, from day one, once you get the site set up on this technology, that's when the work starts to maintain the quality of your data model. The third thing is centralization of resources, change management in terms of service delivery and in terms of the structure of contracts. And the fourth is the prioritization of use cases. And it's really about taking a different approach, because historically people have looked at analytics is this something I want to sell on top of a BMS? And that's not really the right solution. Analytics is there to help. I mean, the best use case of analytics is automating stuff that a services organization is doing as part of their core business processes. So rather than looking at it as a business by business kind of solution, it should be looked as an organization by organization type of solution, which then takes a different, you need to take a different approach in terms of how you're applying it to different use cases. Data acquisition. So this is probably the thing that most people are closest to solving in the industry. So I've given this a TLDR title. Summarizing setup costs. That's a barrier. The setup time, the time it takes to set up is also a barrier. But if you're going to include something as standard and it's just going to be included in your service contracts, you've got to bring down the upfront costs in order to make the economics of it viable. Historically, these analytics deployments have taken 4 to 8 weeks to complete, and that's too long and it's too costly. And so making this whole thing, this whole thing never gets off the ground unless you can bring that cost down. However, as an integrated solution provider, the SIs and MSIs have a lot of control over what tech is deployed. They have a lot of control over the engineering standards that have been used. And some strategic thinking there can go a long way to enhancing the opportunity for automation of deployment of these kinds of solutions. Now, we've seen the people that get it right, and really get it right, can now turn around and deploy these things in a couple of days. So, you're talking about like a 1 million square foot type building. That's on the 2-month kind of in the old way. That's the 2-month kind of time frame for deployment. If you get all of those things right in terms of your system integration and in terms of the right engineering standards to then facilitate automation of applying a data model, that can then happen in a couple of days, which really does a lot of work to bring down the barrier to including this as standard in service contracts. Data integrity. Everyone has heard the bad data in, bad insights out problem. But there is a rule called the Rule of 10, and it basically is rectifying an issue with a data problem requires 10 times the effort. If you want to do advanced analytics, you need good data. And it's not just about the quality of data on day one. We've been around for 10 years and we've had clients that we've had for 10 years. You can guarantee that on those buildings that we've been on for 10 years, there have been a whole bunch of changes made, renovations done, refurbishments done, and the buildings look very different now than they did 10 years ago. So the problem with data quality and maintaining a data model actually starts on day one. It doesn't finish on day one. And this is that last dot point, 50%. Looking inwards at your service organizations, and it's scary that you've probably got about a 50% productivity loss in people that are trying to chase down conclusions from bad quality data, data that is hidden, or data that they just don't trust. I want to do a short case study here. This client is one of the top 20 biggest retailers in the world, and they're one of these clients that we've been working with for a number of years. Got more than 1,000 sites on our platform, 1.5 million data points deployed on our platform, which is actually 1.5 million things to go wrong. And what we saw with their portfolio was that without a data integrity management strategy, the quality of the data model decayed at a rate of 7% per year. And so you think about being Sisyphus and rolling that stone up the hill over and over again. This is another reason. Like, the one thing is the setup cost makes this thing not stand up for service organizations. We can solve that. The second thing is, once you've set the thing up, but keeping it set up, if you're losing the quality of data 7% per year, and what 4 or 5 years into it, your services delivery at a site, and you've lost 35% of your data quality, you're not going to be able to get any value out of your analytics. So first thing to solve is automation when it comes to setup. Second thing to solve is automation when it comes to maintenance of your data model. And so the case study with these folks was phase 1 was measurement. They weren't even able to have the conversation internally to talk about data integrity or data quality because nobody knew what it meant. But you throw together a couple of fancy looking dashboards, and then you report on a number and you show that somebody's data quality is down at 88% or whatever, then it starts to get people attention. So that was a great way to engage with different stakeholders in their org. Based going one step deeper and doing automated gap analysis. And so what are the kinds of things that change on these buildings? One is they have pieces of equipment that are removed from sites, and that takes data points with it. Other thing is they have a new piece of equipment added to sites, and that brings new data points into the system. And then they have things where somebody just decides to change the name of a piece of equipment or change the name of a point. And all of these things are the forces that you're fighting against when it comes to maintaining the quality of your data model for a service portfolio. So getting through phase 1 and phase 2 gives you a good idea of where the problem is, but it still puts you in a position where it is very expensive to fix all of these data quality issues. And it's no use knowing about all this kind of stuff if you don't have the resources there to fix it. So what, the solution is obviously more automation. And what we've found is that by building out an automated data quality management kind of capability, you can solve for 77% of these like data decay issues. Easy to remove points that are gone, right? Easy to remove them out of your data model. You can kind of more or less link up name changes without too much challenge. Adding in the new points and equipment in an automated way is a bit more of a challenge, but it's also solvable. But the idea is, you've made that 7% problem. You've taken that down to 1% data decay, which is a much more manageable problem to solve via humans kind of rolling that stone back up the hill. But data integrity, definitely solvable now. Was it solvable 5 years ago? No, no one was even thinking about this because no one had operationalized it to have to really, come across and develop a solution for this type of problem. Centralized resources. So one of the big change management challenges as services organizations start to evolve their business processes around being more analytics driven, being more proactive, rather than being preventative and reliant on kind of manual inspections and manual checks, is that there becomes a shift from work happening on site to more work being done by that centralized remote services team. So I put together, to illustrate that point, I put together the kind of anatomy. If you look at a bill of materials of a analytics-based maintenance contract, if you look before, which is this one on the left, the bulk of the time is just manual checks. That's PM, preventative maintenance, is just the manual checks that happen. You've got manual checks, you've got some repair time. This is an all-inclusive maintenance contracts type of example. You've got time budgeted in for an account manager, time budgeted in for some remote services, which is just kind of help desk time, and then some repair material allowed for. Ideally, if you want everyone to just do this, and if you want if you want the friction of the process of changing someone over to an analytics process, to an analytics-based contract to be as minimal as possible, then what you got to do is make it stack up so it's the same price for the end client and it's the same GM for the service provider. And everyone else then gets the kind of more qualitative benefits of better productivity, better outcomes, et cetera, et cetera. But what you can see here is that on the right-hand side, post adding in analytics, 15% of the bill of materials comes down to the analytics software, which includes the amortized setup of the software. But just having noting on that is that this also includes like the GM target of the services organization. So both situations, everyone's making the same amount of money. Just the client's getting a better outcome. You can see that the amount of the allowance for remote services has doubled. And this has largely come from a slight amount of efficiency in repair and improvement in efficiency in repair work. And then a very, a fairly significant reduction in the amount of PM time that is allowed. And this isn't a particularly aggressive target to move to, especially with BMS automation system type maintenance service agreements. It's actually quite surprising once you break down the asset kind of based preventative tasking, how much of it is just eyeballs on trend logs, really, or eyeballs on BMS screens. And so the kind of the summary is that if you can solve for this change management problem, if you can get the technology set up and if you can maintain it, this 15% is now technology that is in your bill of materials, technology that you're making the same amount of GM on as if it was labor, but suddenly you freed up that labor to work on other contracts. So you're able to do 15, maybe 20% more maintenance revenue with the same workforce, which kind of sounds like a pretty awesome thing if I was putting myself in the shoes of a services business. I'm time checking myself, and I think that I'm good. Marta, can you give me a time check, please?
Yeah, I think we have about 10 more minutes, Leon.
Perfect. Okay, cool. Thank you. All right. So this last section, I've got 4 use cases to present. And the real point that I want to get across here to everyone is that, if you stop looking at the building as being the customer and you start looking at the services organization as being the customer, and you stop looking at it as a technology add-on and you start looking at it as a way to automate business processes, then the approach you take to the use cases becomes very different. So rather than looking at a particular building and trying to find the most valuable thing to solve on a particular building, you're suddenly now looking at an organization and trying to look at the most valuable processes to automate. And those tend to be, that tends to take the form of, going through service management tickets and doing analysis and that kind of stuff, and then finding what are the things that what are the tasks that are absorbing most of your workforce's time. And we've got a few examples here. One is a preventative maintenance example about like coil and tray inspections. The other one is, I thought I would throw an energy one in here, but this is really for monitoring-based retro commissioning folks or EPC organizations. How do you make their workforce more efficient? And the last one is, again, getting back to maintenance and service, is a predictive maintenance solution or a predictive maintenance use case I thought might be interesting for folks on the call. So I'm not sure how many people work in the refrigeration space, but yeah, doing some predictive maintenance as well. But like I was saying, we're not talking about the building as being the customer. We're not talking about trying to find or divine the most valuable insight you can find on a specific building. We're talking about the organization being the customer for analytics and trying to use data and use evidence to tell us which is the most valuable process that we want to automate. So first one, preventative maintenance automation. We actually had 2 clients go through this process fairly recently, and I pulled out the biggest, the most impressive amounts of savings here. But in terms of coil and tray inspections for a mechanical contractor, what are we talking about? Going into an AHU, looking at the coil, how much condensation is on there, looking at the tray, has it been blocked, is it overflowed, et cetera, all those kinds of very basic, kind of boring, preventive maintenance checks that people do. I put a map there about like how you would do that to a certain standard, which is not relevant. That standard is not relevant in the US, but it's a pretty good one to use as a model if you're going to be following a process for checking trays and drains. And this one mechanical services contractor, talk about going through and looking at their service management system. They figured out they're spending $7 million a year on labor costs just for checking trays and drains. Pretty astounding, right? Pretty big opportunity for, trying to find some savings. Even just one casino client that we have, they have, what are they, like 1,400 SCUs. in their facility. And just doing their checking their trades and drains every month, if they were following this kind of best practice, was a 650 grand a year cost to them. And now it's very possible to take this process here and find opportunities to automate it. And so our goal here was to take, or is to take, a preventative maintenance schedule that happens on a monthly basis and then derate it to a quarterly basis, because you can't fully go away from needing people to eventually put a set of like human eyeballs on a piece of equipment. But this is about finding the balance and not necessarily automating the whole thing, but you know what our target is to go from monthly cadence to quarterly cadence. There are ways. I mean, this is like, I won't bother going into all of the detail here, but there are ways to take these tests and at least prioritize by a risk profile which of those 1,400 FCUs you want to go and put human eyes on. Yeah, it's very solvable. It's very solvable. The $7 million problem for one client, the $650,000 a year problem for another client, very solvable. And you can build a process out. And this trays and drains issue may not be the biggest problem for your organization, but this is more about trying to illustrate the point. And this specific process isn't really what's important. You can build out a new process that's going to save a significant amount of labor once you really take the technology and its capabilities and put that lens over the top of what your typical PM tasks are in your services contracts that you're selling. And in this case, like I said, going from monthly to quarterly, we've got the PM labor down by 65%, which everyone's very happy with. Next, so an energy example, if you were someone who was an energy services organization managing kind of EPC exposure or managing monitoring-based retrofit commissioning across like hundreds or like thousands of properties, you really want to economize the amount of time that you're having to dig into the performance of assets and just focus on the ones that are starting to drift, right, starting to slip. And so this is a very simple example of a capability that will build out an energy model for each of those sites on a regular basis and then just test, versus what are their kind of key drivers for energy consumption. In this case, weather, right? So build a weather-based energy model and then just test daily based on the energy consumption. And out of the 1,000 properties, surface out the 10 that are slipping the most. And that's if you have an energy management center, if you're managing EPCs over hundreds of sites, again, this is something that then just really whittles down the amount of manual labor that it takes to make sure your clients are happy. These last couple, we've got two here, right? So these are two kind of predictive refrigeration-based maintenance insights. And they're both, so this first one has about an average of $4,000 per store per year kind of saving. This last one is somewhere between $2,000 and $5,000 per store per year, but you talk about fleets of grocery stores in the hundreds or even thousands. There's millions of dollars worth of savings just from two predictive maintenance opportunities. And not to mention that in the case of like early detection of refrigerant leaks, depending on the refrigerant in use, you're talking about like avoiding many kilograms or tons of global warming potential avoidance. So what's the point here is not what these things are. So we can predict when case icing is going to occur 5 days ahead of when it actually happens. Technicians love it. We can predict refrigerant leaks, days before they're going to manifest as being problematic. And so what is important is not specifically what these things are, but for this customer, for this organization, it was really important for them. And so based on using the evidence of how their organization spends its resources in servicing their properties, then we were able to you are able to take by analytics, whether it's our analytics or anyone else's analytics, you're able to take an evidence-based approach to automating various business processes that could be quite impactful for your for the properties and for the end clients. So that was really the kind of the point here of the presentation, was trying to reframe everyone's expectation, or the way that everyone looks at analytic solutions, and rather than looking at I sell a BMS, and I'm so used to selling BMSs that analytics, what's this thing? I'm going to go and sell that to the same site and sell analytics on top of a BMS. It's not really about that to me. Like, in terms of crossing the chasm and getting to that majority of early and late majority of adoption, this thing will take off if it makes sense for people's businesses, and the way to do that is to then leverage the capabilities to automate individual business processes at a time, solve things incrementally, solve things at scale, and use it to make a difference to people's service contract base at bottom line, and to the client's outcome that they get from their service. So that is my presentation. So I'm happy to flip to Q&A.
Thanks, Leon, for this wonderful presentation. Anybody can use the chat box, or use your mic if you have any questions. So Leon, while I guess kind of think about the questions, I wanted to ask you. I think buildings come with separate, many different systems, and how do you think the data and the what you can say as unstructured data, or the data from different systems impact the analytics, and how do you ensure that with data quality is putting up front when you kind of take decisions?
So I'm having a bit of trouble with that audio, but was the question, for all these different systems that are out there, how like are there specific issues with data quality based on different kinds of systems? Is that the question?
Exactly. So yeah, my question was, how does different system on unstructured data and data interoperability make analytics job simpler or difficult?
Yeah, so that there are the two things to solve for. One, in terms of like the data quality. One is, how easy is it to apply your data model in the first place? And so people have taken a fairly open approach, setting up their systems, and if they've thought about different types of data ontologies, stuff like Haystack, stuff like Brick, or whichever direction you go, it will lead you to a point where this stuff is a lot easier and a lot less costly to apply. And then if you have implemented the engineering standards to kind of stay true to this kind of thing, then it is easier to maintain as well. If every time someone is doing a renovation on one of your buildings, they're following an engineering standard which tells them to implement something in kind of an open way and in a way that applies an ontology, then it brings both of those aspects, makes both of those aspects more manageable. But in terms of like which specific systems it's easier or harder for, we work across not just BMS, but we do obviously refrigeration, we do like elevators, fire systems, et cetera. What we see is typically BMS is the most it's the most kind of sophisticated developed system in terms of the application of open standards. As you get to other systems like fire panels or elevator management systems, et cetera, or refrigeration, they're all kind of 5 to 10 years behind BMS when it comes to how open they are and how easy they are to integrate with.
This is Ken Wax. Does your company provide additional measurement points beyond that installed by the BMS vendor?
So our company doesn't. In the majority of cases with clients that we work with, what is in the BMS is typically enough for what they need. There are some specific use cases where people do benefit from adding some extra instrumentation either via the BMS or via some IoT-based system. But I'd say that in the 95+% of our clients, they're able to get enough value out of the existing instrumentation in the BMS.
So then your value add is the analytics done on the data that's recorded and theoretically available directly to the BMS operator?
Yeah. So if so, what does our platform do? It's a data processing solution. We've got some IP that we've built around rule sets. We've also got some IP that we've built around like our automation for like standing up sites, applying data models, maintaining data models, etc. We've got a rule set that we've kind of continuously improved over 10 years. But yeah, it's data that is already existing on the BMSs, but it also is data that BMS companies have had access to for the last 30 years or so since DDC was conceived. So yeah, I mean, the client's got access to it, the BMS vendors got access to it, but not many people are doing anything with it yet. I mean, aside from putting technician eyeballs on what the data is saying. But yes, that is correct. We are looking at the data that already exists in the BMS. Does that answer your question, Ken?
Yes, thank you. It's just, are you in a sense showing BMS companies what they could be doing and could chip away at your business?
Yeah, I mean, there are, we already have like any of the major OEMs like Honeywell and Forge or JCI and OpenBlue or Carrier and Abound. They all have kind of competitive solutions to what we do. All of the facility management organizations like JLL and JLL and CBRE also. We're not short on competitors, that's for sure. But we would also our goal is to work with organizations who maybe they're not getting what they want out of their OEM integrated solutions, and maybe we're a better option for them to work with. So there's more people out there than just the big four OEMs.
All right. Well, I guess thanks for your time, Leon. I know you're a busy guy and do a lot of presentations, and it was very insightful. Thank you. Would we be able to share your contact information with the group for those that want to reach out afterwards? Okay, so we'll share the recording and along with the minutes at the end of the presentation, probably in the next couple of days or so. We'll have that posted on the website along with the minutes. So I think next on our agenda here is the Smarter Homes and Buildings podcast that we have a series with Chris Larry.
Yes, thank you. So the ASHB podcast, ASHB Smart Homes and Buildings podcast, has been gaining momentum for a long time and attracting a growing audience. What was initially planned as quarterly releases has now evolved into a monthly schedule. We really want to thank our members and all of the people that have been engaged in support of each of these installments. ASHB is continually seeking hosts and guests to contribute to the podcast. If you have an interest or you feel you have an opportunity that you think you could share, please don't hesitate to call out via the email on the screen here, admin@ashb.com. We encourage you to tune in to the two most recent episodes, which delve into subjects such as smart building business drivers, environmental optimization, and solid footing for new buildings. We are having some new ones that are going to be kind of broaden the plan for the exposure for the podcast. And additionally, we would like to explore the recently recorded episodes by visiting our website. I think that's it. Greg, do you want to take over?
I guess I'll add one more thing. I was speaking to an individual that's looking at doing a podcast in 5G. If anyone's interested in hosting or being involved in that with that individual, let me know and I can give you all the details. But if someone's interested in 5G, and feel free to send me an email. Thanks. And then next we have the ASHB Journal. I think this is going to be taken over by Ken Wax, who leads that journal program.
Well, thank you very much, Greg. The ASHB Journal is a continuing effort that ASHB and its predecessor CABA had in terms of originally paper publication for the CABA Quarterly, and then the four-color magazine, iHomes and Buildings, has now morphed into the online ASHB Journal with original articles. I've been contributing since the inception of the CABA Quarterly, so that's since for about more than 30 years now. And I continue to write every few months for the ASHB Journal. I've recently been doing a series on energy management and separately reporting on the Consumer Electronics Show. We welcome anyone who has an article. We don't really have limitations on length since it's online, but typically it can be a few thousand words, including diagrams. It's available to the public at ashby.com under research. Just look for ASHB Journal. So next I want to tell you about the wealth of information that ASHB provides in terms of research. We offer research that's created originally, it's original research created in the Intelligent Buildings Council and the Connected Home Council. In the Intelligent Building Council, as you see on the screen, the papers that we have published are all accessible at ashby.com/whitepapers. The most recent publication is Fire Alarm Systems, primer on fire and life safety systems that was recently published. We're looking for anyone with an idea for an original paper. These would be introductory papers or tutorials, relatively short, maybe 5 pages, probably no more than 10 pages. We don't expect it to be a treatise on an obscure topic, but rather more of an overview paper on a topic that would be relevant to you folks, people on this call. I'd also like to mention that we also cull the industry for papers that would be of general interest to our industry. We have a publications review committee with a rather rigorous screening process to make sure that papers that we recommend and we put in our library are relevant. So we look at recently published papers, we look at papers that are in the field of home or buildings, and papers that are not overtly commercial. We recognize that companies writing papers like to talk about their technology, which is fine. If the paper introduces a general area or explains the challenges, and it may end by saying, and by the way, our company has a solution, that's fine. But if the paper begins by saying, this is the problem, there is only one company in the world doing a decent solution, and it's us, we'd be sort of turned off by that. As a little reward for the time it takes you, the ASHB member, to do the analysis, we will give you a small reward of $25 US and $25 credit towards CABA purchases. We do have a submission form where we ask for specific data about the paper and a keyword list to make it searchable. So between the white papers and the publications review committee, ASHB offers a wealth of resources for members, and our older papers are made available to the general public. We literally have thousands of papers. Greg, maybe Marta, the latest stats on the library size, but we continue to build it up. And thank you to all the ASHB members who do diligent reviews for our library. And open to any questions.
Well, if there's thanks, Ken. If I'll take the next one here if for the new business from Bob Allen, because he couldn't make it. But just opening up the floor for new business that anybody would like to bring up, either right now on this meeting or in future meetings, like potentially new keynote presentations, potential white papers, or topics you'd like the council to address further, or new agenda items for future council meetings. And we're always looking for keynote presentations from any notable members or those in the industry that you could provide at this meeting, or even podcasts on guests or hosts. So I'll leave it at that if anybody has any new business to bring up. Hearing none, we'll go to the next item here with I see Bob Roberts.
Yes, good morning. Good morning.
You've joined us with video as well. And
yes, I made it.
Yeah, so you could let us know what's going on in the
well, we have four events coming up. The building show, the Canadian Building Show, will open up here next Tuesday, runs for 4 days, brings together all the major construction companies, people that own property, I guess, as much around the world as anybody else. And it will be probably drawing somewhere between 8,000 and 10,000 people to the city of Toronto. CABA will have a booth at this particular event, so you're all welcome to, if you're in the city, etc., give us a shout. AHR, the Heating and Ventilating Refrigeration Show, is scheduled for January in Chicago. It's always a big show, brings together a lot of technology. It's well attended. And CABA, once again, will have a booth at that particular show. And I think ASHB has a booth at the AR Expo also, looking at healthy buildings. 2 other events coming up: Bixby Winter Conference in January in Orlando, Florida, and then Buildex in Vancouver for those on the West Coast in mid-February. So that's the shows coming up, the trade shows coming up, and etc. So over to you, Greg.
Yeah, and we're doing at the Builder Show, we're doing also a presentation on indoor air quality or indoor environmental quality and intelligent buildings. At the AHR Expo, we're doing a couple panels, and we're doing a couple presentations based on smart home trends and intelligent building trends at that event as well.
Good. That's all for me coming up.
Okay. Well, On behalf of Bob Allen, the next meeting we have is scheduled. They're quarterly, so we're doing it in February because January is a busy month for everyone. And sometime in February, a date to be announced. We'll be sending off the date and the invite when we know more, and we'll be providing the minutes and the recording for this presentation on the website at ashb.com/IBC. And if you want to get in touch with Leon or any other speaker at the event at the presentation, feel free to send me an email at walker@ashb.com. And thanks a lot for everyone's time.